Welcome back to the Unhinged Addiction Podcast. My name is Eric. I go by the Mr. Impulsive on social media. I have started to really enjoy doing this podcast. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 3. This episode here, what exactly is sobriety, Cali sober? Can you use other substances and still be sober? I guess is the question of the day when it comes to this podcast. It's something that hits me different, I guess. And this is something that can actually get me really fired up sometimes on even an emotional level because I know what happens to me when I'm not medicated. And if you don't know my story, eventually I'll be sharing with others on this podcast, but for right now you just get to hear my stories. And I got diagnosed ADD at 13. This is back in like the early 90s, all right? So they were talking about this stuff called ADD, kids having some trouble in school, trouble focusing, trouble, with just remembering to do stuff, just all of that, And so I go in, my dad says, hey, I think you might have this. I was struggling really bad in school. I couldn't focus. I couldn't remember to do homework, like very forgetful, just always distracted. And I come from a family. I mean, my dad was a very successful doctor. My mom ran the office and stuff. And it's like, you shouldn't be failing all your classes in middle school. This is before no student is left behind either. So yes, in junior high, you could get Fs and you could get Ds and Cs and all of this. You weren't getting like, hey, satisfactories. Plus you couldn't make up work. So they think something's wrong. My dad gets me with the doctor. Her name was Dr. Ayers, actually. She was my dad's psychiatrist for a very long time, but he gets me an appointment with her and they start the diagnosis process. And when I got diagnosed with ADD, okay, this is early 90s, I met with her twice and did a bunch of different questionnaires. I actually met with her husband, who's a psychologist. I ended up having to take a written test that was like 2 or 3 hours long. It was like a week-long process to get this diagnosis. And I eventually get diagnosed with ADD. So they put me on Ritalin. That was the medication that was pretty much, I think, out. It was like the only med that I even heard of at the time. Man, I got on Ritalin and like life changed for me. Life became clear. I wasn't as disheveled. I was able to focus in on school. I was able to like maintain friendships easier. I was able to watch my grades come up. I felt smart again. Like I knew I was smart and not dumb, but I felt so stupid. And now all of a sudden I felt smart. And it wasn't that it like made me smart, but I could now focus and retain what was being said to me. I could take notes and go back to those notes. My memory was better. Like it was an amazing change in my life when I got on it. And I did struggle a lot though. Like I thought I was different and I beat myself up over being different a lot. And I hated that, The rejection sensory when it comes to ADHD is real. Later on, alcohol, I learned, unfortunately, helps you with that. And it's probably one of the most unhealthy coping mechanisms there is. But my grades started going up, all of that. I later on at 17 get re-diagnosed with ADHD. And then I get prescribed Adderall. That was a new drug at the time. And this is now late 90s. And I had great grades, very functioning, very I was good. Now, I did start drinking at like 14 when it came to addiction-wise, because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be one of the cool kids. Like peer pressure is worse than what like people always put, like, oh, just say no to peer pressure and stuff. Dude, when you don't fit in or you don't feel normal and you want friends, you want to be like everybody else and you want to be like that, that's real, man. And I don't think we talk to kids enough about what peer pressure truly is like. It's not... People aren't handing out free drugs or anything like that. It's more of you want to fit in and you want to be liked by others and you want to have friends and unfortunately you kind of gravitate towards, different personalities. And I think a lot of ADHD people gravitate towards other ADHD people, and unfortunately none of us ever communicate that we're ADHD and, we struggle with different things. So next thing you know, we're all addicts and we're all friends. But it was something that I'd always experimented with alcohol. When I was in high school, experimented and smoked weed, but I mean, you're talking like Mexican brick weed is what we were smoking. This was before any of like, if you got like hydroponics weed, like you were awesome. I lived in Michigan, dude. Like that stuff wasn't in Michigan. It was Mexican brick weed. You're picking out the seeds and it's like just crusty. Experimented with LSD and acid, microdots, Molly, experimented a little bit with cocaine, and just none of that really got to me. Alcohol did though. Alcohol was like, it was cool. It was the normal. Everybody drank at parties and stuff. And I always just kind of drank. It helped me unwind. It helped me, kind of feel normal, all of that. But the amazing thing is when it comes to medications like this, there's this negative stigma around, especially I'll give ADHD meds probably the worst. Them and benzos. When it comes to ADHD meds, they are amphetamine salts. They do produce dopamine. There is an addictive abuse side to them. Just like with Xanax and Ativan, a lot of these substances, shouldn't necessarily say substances, but medications, help a lot of people. They are tools to a lot of people. And even myself, when my dad committed suicide, Xanax was a big tool to me so I didn't have panic attacks and relapse. I would rather be on Xanax through my dad's suicide than cocaine and alcohol. So there's a huge difference when it comes to, abuse and, addiction. But unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people realize that. And everybody wants to tell you, especially those who aren't sober, everyone who's not sober wants to tell you how to be sober. And everybody who is sober thinks that they know the right way to be sober. There is no right or wrong way of being sober. And when it comes to Cali sober, I am all for Cali sober. Because here's my thoughts and my experiences with this. Like, when I didn't take my Adderall, I started just self-medicating harder and harder. I mean, alcohol worked a lot in a sense like Adderall did or Ritalin did for me, or, an ADHD med. It produced some dopamine, slowed down my central nervous system, slowed down my thinking, allowed me to focus, kind of killed a lot of the internal dialogue. But I couldn't control it. It wasn't like Adderall. It's weird. I can control Adderall. Like, I've never struggled with taking too much Adderall. I've never struggled taking too much Ritalin. Now, I'll be real. I mean, I've crushed it up and snorted it before. I was curious to how it would feel. I was curious to the effects of it. It doesn't really affect you any different. It hits your system a little bit harder. If you're hooked to stimulants and so forth. But other than that, it's not that much. I forget to take it, man. I have to have alarms set to take it. And it's funny, doing this podcast right now, I do it on my phone, and I have messages and stuff that pop up. And Sunflower, the owner of this app, hit me up, and he was like, dude, I love where you're going with this. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with them, marketing-wise, this app, because I believe in it so much. I believe in a AI sponsor because I know what it's like to be alone at night, especially like 2, 3 in the morning when these cravings hit you and everything, and there's nobody to talk to, dude. No one's picking up the phone, except for your dealer if you hit them up. But an AI sponsor, just something to help you logically process through, I think is huge. And that's what this app has. So if you haven't downloaded it, download it. Didn't mean to throw in that spot ad, but there you go. But when it comes to like these ADHD meds, like, I forget to take them half the time. I run out of them. I've had times where, like with the Adderall shortage, like, it was never a priority to like keep them stocked up. I forget to take them half the time. I don't take them as prescribed, and I really don't. Like, I don't take my meds as prescribed. I don't take them 7 days a week. I don't take it twice a day. I'm on 10 milligrams right around 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m., and then another 10 milligrams from about 12:30 to 1. And that's it. That's what I take. I take 20 milligrams a day, Monday through Friday. Don't take them on Saturday and Sundays. But I have to remember to take them. And it's like, even yesterday, I was going through the day and I'm like, man, why am I not focused? It's really hard for me to do my postings and my listings and stuff, and I'm just not motivated. And it was like, crap, I forgot my morning dose of Adderall. I forget a lot of times to take, Adderall. I forget to refill my meds. And I think most people with ADHD can attest to this. Now, I didn't forget to hit up a dealer for Coke. I didn't forget to stop at the liquor store for alcohol. So it's amazing how I could always remember to buy Coke and always get a hold of a plug and get hooked up with Coke. Alcohol, always run into the store to get it. But it's such a different mentality when it comes to like my ADHD meds of like, oh, I'm almost out. Maybe tomorrow I'll call and get my prescription refilled. Or, oh, I got enough for a week, so on Friday, even though it's Monday, I can call and get my meds refilled. Very procrastinative on it. And man, when I take it, yeah, there are side effects. Like, I get dry mouth. I forget to eat and stuff. That's it. I'm actually a lot more toned down on Adderall than I am amped up and hyped up, believe it or not. Like my wife will sometimes even tell me, we're in Seattle this weekend, and there's a couple times she's like, dude, you're being a lot. And we were with friends, and I realized I was being a lot just because I'd forgotten to take my meds. And so I'd go take my Adderall, and it would actually like calm me and slow me back down. I don't think that's why people don't realize I could sleep on cocaine and stuff. Stimulants affect us differently with ADHD. And so people all the time will accuse me, oh, you're not sober because you're on these ADHD meds. And it's like, dude, if I'm not on these meds, I'm going to destroy my life. I'm going to result to a default that will help with my brain. I'm going to default to something to slow me down. I'm going to go to a self-medicating form. And I think that's what a lot of us do. Whenever I got off of my ADHD meds is when I would start drinking more. I would start using cocaine more. My first wife used to tell me that, you don't need ADHD meds. It's all in your head. My first wife used to tell me that. And I stopped taking my ADHD meds. She told me I didn't need them, and it's amazing. I started drinking more. I started drinking a lot more. Next thing you know, we're getting divorced, and man, I ended up taking my Adderall again. I could kind of get it back under control. It was funny. Like I could get my life under control with Adderall. I could focus. I could be productive, obsessed, goal-oriented, driven. Man, you take it away from me, and I'm just like a cluster of just thoughts and ideas that can't even develop sometimes more past the shower thought process. And I will default to drinking. And that's what I did. Anytime I stopped with my meds is when my drinking and especially my cocaine use would go through the roof. I would stop taking my meds, and that was the way that I self-medicated. And I know a lot of people out there with ADHD are the same. And it's hard because then people are embarrassed to talk about it because it's, it is a stimulant and people accuse you of not being sober. And my whole thing with addiction is if it's obsessive, that's an addiction. If it's obsessive, it's a solution and a negative solution that is dictating your life. It's different. My life isn't dictated by Adderall. My life isn't dictated by I have to keep popping Adderall. How do I get more Adderall? Oh my God, I feel it kind of going away. I need to get more of it in my system. A fear of me losing the high from it. Any of that, like none of that crosses my mind. I have to force myself to take it versus cocaine. I had to just keep doing it because I didn't want that feeling to go away. I didn't want to feel the dopamine drop. I wanted to feel happy and I wanted the big mood energy. So I would just keep doing cocaine and then I would keep drinking because it made me feel good and it gave me, confidence or whatever. And it's not the case when it comes to Adderall. And I know that's the case with actually a lot of people that are on ADHD meds. And unfortunately, they do have a really bad stigma around them because it is an amphetamine salt. It is not methamphetamines. It does affect your brain differently than what crystal meth does. But even then, there is methamphetamine dioxin, I believe it's called, which is an ADHD med. There's about 16,000 prescriptions a year wrote for it. And it is methamphetamines. So it does act differently than a amphetamine salt does. And I really wish people would do their research on some of this stuff. To just kind of clump it all in isn't the same. Using opiates to using heroin isn't the same. Using crystal meth and cocaine isn't the same kind of addiction. There's a lot that kind of goes into addiction. And when you just generalize a lot of it, I think it hurts a lot of addicts out there, especially the ones trying to get sober. You're going to treat a heroin addict differently than you're going to treat a crystal meth addict. And when it comes to the type of therapy that we need and the type of help that we need and support that we need and the different withdrawals that we're going through. So to me, being on Adderall is in a sense, I guess you could say being Cali sober or sober in my opinion. I will always say I'm sober because I don't lead a destructive life. I don't live a obsessive life, a life full of lies, a life full of deceit, a life full of me just destroying myself where I'm literally living for a substance. It allows me to live for me, if that makes sense. So I do believe in finding a lot of times the right medication. I'd rather have the solution to all my challenges right now be Adderall than be cocaine. The risk of dying from cocaine, the risk of fentanyl and all that stuff. So that is one of my huge things on it because people hit me up on, the Cali sober thing when it comes to smoking weed or, SSRIs or any of that stuff. I will say this, I've always struggled with NA and AA because it was so big on like abstinence of everything. And everybody lies. That's my favorite part. 90% of the people lie. You know, they're sober. You don't understand, you know, I'm sober. But then you check their medicine cabinet and they're on Zoloft. They're on Lexapro. They're on Prozac. These affect your serotonin levels, so it chemically changes your brain. Anything that chemically changes your brain by what the definition of sobriety is in NA and AA, anything that changes your brain chemistry or changes how your brain produces and neurotransmitters work is, you know, a substance. You're not clean or you're not sober. So technically, anybody who's on Lexapro or an antidepressant, you're not sober. But yet, I feel that antidepressants are one of the most important things when getting sober because, especially with stimulants more than opiates and some of the others, stimulants especially, you experience a ton of depression. Your brain's trying to level itself back out. You have dopamine tolerance. You are just not finding the normal happiness out there. So that's a really big struggle for a lot of people. And to have something that helps you, why not? Like, I'd rather see somebody on Lexapro or something like that that actually helps them to get themselves off of cocaine and then, you know, maybe work at tapering and getting off of the Lexapro eventually or whatever it might be. Same when it comes to even Xanax and benzos. I mean, these are drugs that are heavily abused by people out there. Xanax is the second most popular pill-pressed pill. Black market pill out there, Xanax bars. Even though Xanax doesn't even really come in bars anymore, I mean, you can still find Xanax bars out there. But everyone knew what Xanax bars were, so it's kind of like that's what they're pressed into. And it's the main ingredient in those is fentanyl. Because it, you know, calms you down, slows you down. Even though it's an opioid, most people don't know what to expect out of a benzo per se. So they feel it relaxes them when in fact, you know, they're putting something in their body that's so toxic and so easy to OD on. And I will say this, like if you have a panic disorder or when you're getting sober and you lose a loved one to suicide or a loved one dies or a child dies or whatever, I mean, to numb this pain, to stop the freakouts and the panic attacks, a lot of people will relapse, you know, a lot of people will go back to their drug of choice and just completely numb life and destroy themselves again. Versus in a lot of cases with, you know, the right doctor getting on Xanax for, you know, setting a goal on Xanax for four weeks and then making sure that you get off of the Xanax and then coming back to it, seeing if you're having the panic attacks and really putting the focus on like what's going on so that you're doing it healthy. Isn't that obsessive addiction style where you're popping them like Skittles, you know? That's the big difference when it comes to a lot of these different medications out here. Are you popping them like Skittles and you're just eating through them like candy? Or are you taking them as prescribed and you have no desire to take above or beyond what's prescribed to you? And that's what I think a lot of people have to keep in mind. You know, not judging somebody along their journey of whatever their sobriety is. I will say this, like I would at lunch as an addict way rather have went and got alcohol, did a couple fucking shots, maybe had a couple beers, try and eat something, do a few lines and go back to work, than go and take my Adderall and sit down and eat a lunch and go back to work. I mean, as an addict, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to destroy my life. I wanted to numb it all. I wanted to end it all. So it's a very different mental, you know, brain process. You're not obsessed about it like you are your drug of choice, and that's why it's really, I think, called, you know, a drug of choice. Or, you know, there are poly addicts out there who like multiple substances. For me, I didn't really like multiple substances. I hated crystal meth, even though I've snorted it before. I liked Norcos and hydrocodone and oxys. I didn't like oxys. They were really rough on my stomach. They were rougher on my stomach than what Norcos were. And I still wasn't that obsessed with them. Not like I was with alcohol and cocaine. And that's kind of, I think, more or less the insanity of addiction. When it comes to why we're an addict and why we have these substances we prefer over everything else. So, you know, when it comes to smoking weed, I know people who are weed addicts. You know, weed's the other weird one that's like you're tiptoeing on. When it comes to weed, I'm for it, man, if it helps somebody. People ask me all the time, hey, are you Cali sober? You smoke za? I don't. It messes with my anxiety. It doesn't matter if it's indica, sativa, if it's, wax, crumble, whatever, edibles, all that. I've tried it all, man. My last ex-wife, Amber, was a hardcore stoner, dude, and she smoked a ton of weed and a ton of wax and had a ton of edibles. I mean, it was an everyday event. I mean, she's somebody I could look at and be like, yes, you are addicted to weed. But I will say I met people that were crystal meth addicts. They're doing smash and grabs, burning cars that they stole, taking all the stolen credit cards and stuff to gas stations and buying lotto tickets with them and scratchers and doing all the scratchers. I know people like that. And when they got sober, they struggled with sleep, they struggled with anxiety, they struggled with a lot, and hitting a pin, 3 or 4 hits before bed so that they could sleep and take away the edge and the anxiety without the urge to want to use and stuff. Like, cool, and that's where everybody's addiction is different. Like, I had a good friend of mine who sponsored me for a while, and he was a crystal meth addict. That was his drug of choice, man. He would tell me stories of doing meth, him and his brother and stuff, man, and some of the stuff they would do when they get busted by the cops and stuff. I'm just like, damn, bro, like my addiction, like I was just like a rich addict, I guess. I never ended up, having to steal and stuff from cars, any of that. But I would go broke myself. I just happened to be a very good functioning addict, but he was not a functioning addict by any means. He was very obsessive. And it was weird. Like, I remember watching his sobriety journey, and he was really big on, not drinking, any of that stuff. And then all of a sudden he felt like he had relapsed because he had some alcohol one time. And it got to the point where he was like, yeah, like he could go out and have like a vodka and like Coke or whatever, or vodka and cranberry. Drink one, we'd be at like El Torito's in Huntington Beach or La Palma or whatever, we'd get taco plates, and he'd have that one and he'd be done. And I'd look at him and go, I don't understand how you do this, dude. Like, I don't understand. Like, you're a crystal meth addict. Like, meth destroys your life. But yet you can have one drink and have no desire to drink again, and have no desire for like months to even think about drinking. That wasn't me. And so that's where it really comes down. Like, we have these drugs of choices, where I know a lot of people who they will say, I am sober from this because this is their substance that ruined their life. But there's other things out there that didn't. He could hit a wax pen for anxiety or to help him sleep, because they didn't want to be on like Lunesta or some of these really like powerful sleeping aids. And I got it. Like, if you're not destroying your life and you're living a functioning life and you're not living an obsessive life and you're able to be a good dad and you're able to be a good wife and a good partner and you're able to go to work and you're putting your family first and you're putting everything first. And yes, there's something out there that is like a tool. Why not? Looking for a tool to aid in your recovery, or looking for an app that will help you get sober? Download Sunflower Sober today on iOS. It is an app that has a AI sponsor that can help you with sobriety. It has a journal. It has every tool that you need to help get sober. So download Sunflower Sober today. You'll be happy you did. It's like telling a carpenter, because he smashed his hand a few times with a hammer, like, don't ever use a hammer again. Like, that makes no sense. Like, why handicap yourself? Why not use everything at your disposal to stay away from the drugs that destroy your life? And I think it's really important. And that's the thing that I always feared when it came to like sobriety. And even with me, a lot of times why I would relapse is it was like, you're so shamed for relapsing. You're so put down for relapsing that to have negative stigma around medications is ridiculous. Especially when you have these people who, maybe they're 20 years sober. Like, cool, bro. Good job, man. You're 20 years sober. Sorry I wasn't sucking dick for crack like you were. So yeah, your addiction was different than mine. But I'd rather work with a psychiatrist who has done a lot of work on addiction and understands addiction. Maybe they're an addict themselves in recovery, but understands addiction in that sense of finding the right balance of sometimes medication to help as tools to utilize them in your life to have a functioning, productive life where you're not seeking out a destructive solution. That I will trust hands down. And it's amazing though how people will just put that down, and we're not moving with the times. When NA and AA came out, they didn't know about ADHD. They didn't know about BPD or bipolar 2 and like half of this stuff. PTSD was a soldier's, disease. And I don't even think even then really was PTSD that like paid attention to. Mental health didn't matter almost back then like it does now. And the research of how your brain changes and alters, there's so much more has changed, and we have to move with the times. And if you don't, I think you truly lose out on so much. I know a lot of people out there who are sober that hate life, because I was that way. When I first got sober and I was only doing NA and AA, I was an angry, angry drunk. And we all lied. Like, you'd be in AA and, of course, everybody's sober. And I wasn't telling anybody I was on Adderall. My doctor even told me, like, hey, if they're shaming you on it, you don't have to tell them about it. And it was funny because the more that I started sharing about it, the more I found people that were like, alcohol and crack, or they're on heroin or whatever. But you know what? Guess what? They're on Xanax now, and it helps. And they're not killing themselves, and they only take it when needed or whatever. And hey, that's awesome, dude. You're not destroying your life. And so my doctor would always tell me, you don't have to share. Which then made me not feel like I wasn't authentic. And maybe I was just looking for a fight. Who knows? Because I struggled with a lot of things in there. But it was such a set way. Like, if you didn't do it this way, you're going to die. And I don't agree with that. I think that there's a lot of different ways out there to get sober. I have not used alcohol and cocaine. 7/25/17 is my sobriety date. And I have not used cocaine since 7/25/17. And it's a massive stimulant. But a month after, like less than a month actually into my sobriety, probably like 2 weeks into my sobriety at least, I was back on my Adderall prescription. I was back seeing a psychiatrist. Thankfully, my dad ended up killing himself a week later after that. But it helped me tremendously just stay focused. And it almost gave me the mental bandwidth where I could be like, oh shit, this is pissing me off, but dude, don't do coke, don't drink. Dude, you're 14 days, 15 days sober, you're 18 days sober. Like, it allowed me to focus in on my sobriety instead of just struggling and muddling through it. And that's why I think it's so important to be open-minded on somebody's sobriety. And if you don't have an addict in your life and you're not affected by addiction, cool, dude, stay the fuck away from it. Don't try to tell addicts how to live their life that are in recovery, or even that are struggling with addiction, unless you understand and you've taken a lot of time to make sure that you are able to make valid conversation on it rather than hurtful conversation. Because no one, I think, will make an addict relapse faster than family and friends that have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Why can't you just stop? Or, if you love me, and they're throwing out the ultimatums and they're throwing out the, well, if you were strong, you could do this and stuff like that. Just, it doesn't trigger us. I always hated the word trigger, but it pisses us the fuck off. We're like, dude, fuck you. Watch this. I'm going to get fucking high as a motherfucker. Because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's amazing our mentality on that. And that is how we are as addicts. And so when we do find like the right medication combination that helps us, dude, it changes everything. It changes life for you. It changes productivity for you. It changes focus. Instead of thinking about when am I going to get my next six pack, or I got to go get a fifth, or dude, I need to get a bag. Instead, you're like, oh, I need to take my meds, and then I'm going to eat lunch, and then I got to get back to work. And oh, tonight, me, the wife, and the kids, we're going to go do this. Like, it's such a different mindset than thinking, an hour, half hour in advance to thinking throughout your day through advance and making plans. That is the reality of, sobriety in a sense. And that to me is sobriety. Sobriety is living a productive, non-obsessive, destructive life. Adderall, Eric, on his ADHD meds, even when I was taking Xanax and ADHD, people be like, oh, you're speedballing. And it's like, no, I'm not. That's not how it really works. So it's calming me down, slowing me down. And you know what? It's allowing me to still maintain a little bit of my focus. And guess what? I'm not losing my crap and now massively focused on the fact that my dad bled out in his car and I want to go use because I have to numb this. And I didn't realize even the PTSD that I ended up getting from going through his car and the smell of blood, what that did to me, man. There's a lot of stuff in there that kind of screwed me up pretty bad. But medication helped me through a lot of it. And then, even then, getting off of Xanax, getting off of benzos, wasn't hard to do, and it wasn't a drug of choice. And yeah, if I would have became obsessed about it, it's my responsibility as an addict in recovery to tell my doctor. That's a big difference, I think, with an addict in recovery versus a non-addict in recovery when it comes to a lot of these medications and stuff. Is, are we responsible enough now as human beings to realize that this is a problem? And not having the fear anymore, because the more and more you're sober, less and less I think fear you have. Like, I'm not afraid of relapsing. I don't even think about it because I can't justify it. I can't justify having a beer. There is zero justification in a beer. I go to the gym. I work out a lot. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to get into better shape. These are my goals. I'm really working on it, focusing on diet. Positivity, productivity, all this stuff. Like, really living a good life. And like, alcohol does absolutely no benefit to it. People are like, well, why don't you just try and have a beer again and stuff? I'm like, why? Because I want the carbs and the potential for it to go bad. And like, it brings zero positivity in my life. And that's the huge difference when it comes to being sober, in my opinion, versus not being sober. Not being sober, it's like you have this FOMO, you need it, you don't understand. It calms me down, it relaxes me. It's like, it's so much just crap thinking versus clarity. And so, the more and more I've talked to individuals, I did a speaking engagement. You can find it on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Eric B. Zink. If you type that into YouTube, you'll find my YouTube channel. And I did a live stream at the Peer Recovery in Arkansas. And it was one of the most enlightening things I'd ever been to, where I'm watching these addicts in recovery in these rehab centers and stuff. And now people are up there talking, giving these presentations. And everyone's talking about, medication and open-mindedness in this, of realizing that it's just not about abstinence. Like, to just quit everything, and that's how it has to be. And don't take care of your mental health just one day at a time. It isn't the way to go. And they're seeing better results. They're seeing less people going back to prison. They're seeing less relapses. They're seeing more addicts being productive members in recovery and in society. Instead of, wanting to go get drunk and fucked up during lunch, they're looking forward to going back to work and finishing out their day. I mean, as an addict, that wasn't our mentality. And so I think it's really cool to see people in that aspect, who is the recovery community, especially in like a state like Arkansas, so open-minded. But you have so much of a toxicity of the people that don't understand addiction, this old mentality. I think it'll be a long time before anyone changes their viewpoints on it, before anyone changes their thought process on what addiction really is and what addiction's really like, and how to be, more productive, how to be, how addicts become better, spouses and all of that. So it is one of those that, when you're getting sober, I think having that right environment is key. Because the wrong environment, I think, leads a lot of people to relapse. Where you're relapsing, you're lying to people that you're clean. And I think anybody who's out there that's an addict has done that before, dude, where you're telling everybody you're clean, but man, they know. Like, you're a month into already hardcore relapse, pupils all jacked up and shit, and you're telling somebody that you're clean still. And they're saying, oh yeah, good for you, and it's like, because they don't want to call you out, Maybe they don't even know. Who knows? So it's amazing. But having an open-mindedness when it comes to it, realizing there's a difference between someone going to work and being a dad versus somebody under an overpass homeless with a needle in their arm and kids have no idea where their dad or their mom is. A big difference, man. And so to judge people on their journey, to judge people on their story, I think is sad. I think it's pitiful. I think it shows the negativity of human nature. It's amazing how people feel that they're experts on things even when they're not. I mean, I'm not an expert on sobriety, mental health, or any of this shit. I just share my story. And it's my story. It's nobody else's. I don't, dude, it works for me. I tell people a lot of times, like, don't try and get sober the way I did, because It was unique to me, and all of our sobriety stories are unique. And you have to find yours. If you're trying to follow a guideline, like you have to do this step by step by step, the worst thing ever is when that doesn't work and you relapse, the feeling that you're never going to get sober, that you can't get sober because that way that's supposed to work didn't work for you. And it becomes weaponized by your brain, where your brain starts looking at this like, see, you shouldn't get sober, shouldn't do this because it's not going to work. It's not for you. It's okay. Come on back, just use a little bit this time. This time will be different. This time you can have just one. I mean, that's how my relapses always were. I'd celebrate week of sobriety. This time's going to be different. I'm just going to have one beer. I'm going to celebrate with a beer. I'm going to celebrate my sobriety with a beer. That makes fucking sense. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like 3 a.m. and I'm dialing up plugs and I'm high on fucking Coke and alcohol and I'm just not stopping. And then waking up the next day going, well, fuck it, I relapsed. I'm a failure. Poor me. It really builds a big victim mentality. And then I would just go down that road again. And that's the crappy part, is it was like that judgmental mentality creates a victim mentality in us that enables us to just continue to use. Like, I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm here to fucking live my life. And I don't give two fucks what somebody else says. And I think that's the mentality you have to have in sobriety. My sobriety, I'm not proving to you shit. I'm proving to myself that I can live and not die. I'm proving to myself that I can be a dad. I'm proving to myself that I can be a husband every single day, and I'm working on that. And you coming in and chirping at me, all it does is show me you're an ugly human being, that you're a judgmental human being, and you have no right being in my life, and I will yeet you out because I know what healthy boundaries are now. Because before, I would have used you to my advantage. I would have used you to relapse. I would have said, poor me, poor Eric, that person's right. Look at you're failing people out there that don't give two fucks about you. They just want to chirp in your ear. They want to put you down. They hate to see people successful. They hate to see people grow. So they're going to put you down any way you can, man. And what's an easy way to attack an addict? Easy way to attack an addict that's recovered is to attack their sobriety. To tell them that they're not doing it right. Okay, thank you, Jim, for telling me that. All you've done is show me what kind of human being you are. That you had the nerve to attack my life and to attack what I've built and what I've created and how much I've moved forward in life. That you've shown me so fast, thankfully, who you are, that my healthy boundary is later. Bye. And that's the big thing with addiction, is you have to set those boundaries, because sometimes those critics are going to be family members, man. Sometimes they're going to be parents. Sometimes, I've noticed with parents, it's usually not quite as bad, but it is. Like, don't get me wrong. But like with grandparents, it can be worse. And like uncles, it can be worse. Extended family, it can be a lot worse than like your brothers, your sisters, and mom and dad. So you got to be aware of that. But like, even with family, man, just because they're blood doesn't make them family. Don't be afraid to cut them out. And don't be afraid to find what works for you. And that's what's always inspired me to share. I mean, that's why I kind of got inspired to do this podcast, was just to keep sharing, my living testimony, my living story, my living education, and then start sharing other people's. Because the more that we go through this journey, the more you really realize so much that like everybody got sober differently. Everybody's sobriety is differently, and we're all living these functioning lives and these amazing lives all of a sudden. That you don't have to be that person going to an AA meeting or an NA meeting angry at life, angry at everyone, lying to yourself and lying to others how you're 90 days sober and you love life all of a sudden. Life is beautiful. It was so worth it. Inside you're like, this is fucking dumb and I want to pull the trigger of a gun in my mouth. And nobody's saying the reality of it, and you're just struggling, hating every second of it, fighting truly relapse versus somebody who is at peace with it all. And it's like, hey, like I know what I'm doing. I know what my life is. I know what where I'm going with this, and I love to see what I've created. So keep that in mind, man. I'm loving the podcast though. I hope you guys enjoy it, dude. Go to ericbzink.com. There is a submission button there that you can submit, like if you had topics that you want me to talk about, or like people that you wanted me to reach out to do podcasts with as this grows. I mean, my goal is now with this podcast to have the #1 addiction podcast there is. that can hopefully change with open-mindedness. I am a competitive person. That's part of me. That welcome to me. That's part of me. I am very competitive. I don't want awards or anything. I just want people to say, dude, I want to be on that podcast, or people to listen to it and hopefully make a difference. Because I love it. It inspires me because there's a lot of times where we're our own worst critic. And if you don't hear it from others, sometimes you're like beating yourself up like, why am I even doing this? I think I'm a lot more past that point. But it's like, I don't know. I find inspiration in different things. And it's just so amazing when somebody says like the right things that just massively inspire you. And I think that alone is really cool. I do mentoring sessions and stuff there too. I do have Banff Wellness and Recovery. If you're in the middle of getting sober and you're looking for stuff to help you, I got magnesium glycinate that I use. There's Lion Mane sleep formulas, all natural. I donate a portion of the proceeds to suicide awareness. I got merch up there if you want to get some Warrior merch. If you want to check me out on all the different social medias, YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm on X. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Lemonade. I'm on Clapper now. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all of those. I mean, this is what I do for a living. I'll be hopefully having a book come out at the beginning of summer. That's literally kind of like just my whole story from like childbirth and, early childhood trauma to where I'm at now. Because, people ask, and it's like, I spent a lot of years in addiction. And like, I look back and I don't regret much in my life. Like, I know I hurt a lot of people, which was fucked up, but I don't regret any of it. It's like, I did what I did. Like, I can't go back and change it. That I know. But man, the last 2 years have been fucking amazing. And don't get me wrong, I'm a little stressed out that TikTok might go away. I'm going to probably do the next podcast on social media and sobriety and how that can fuck with people's sobriety and how it can help people with sobriety. Because that's a topic I always found really cool. So I'm hoping that TikTok stays. And if it doesn't, there's tons of other social medias out there. Plus, hence I got this podcast now that you can find me. Just Google the Mr. Impulsive or Eric B. Zink. And you can find a lot of my stuff out there on all the different social medias. But anyone out there getting sober, man, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to this and know that you can do it. Know that you can do this. The one thing I will say I got from NA and AA that I will always use it is one day at a time. I do believe in that mentality of like focusing on today and today only. I focus on the future, I focus on the goals, but I also know that today is within my control and tomorrow isn't. And that helps me so much with my sobriety, and maybe it will help somebody else out there. So I appreciate you all for listening, and I can't wait for the next episode to come out and see where this goes, because this has been fun so far, and I'm really starting to enjoy it. The podcast will probably get a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer. But hey, you know what? It's hopefully some people are out there on the road doing a road trip or whatever, or just maybe it's nighttime and you're trying to get sober and you just need to hear somebody talk to you and hear a conversation. Maybe it will help. So that's what it's all about, man, and I hope that you guys have a good one. For more, go to ericbzink.com. Anything from mentoring to help to support to resources. Again, that is ericbzink.com for anything that you need for any of the struggles that you're going through.